everyone, I'm Janisha. Next up, we have a special guest, Mrs. Sapna Bangar. Dr. Sapna Bangar is a specialist child and adolescent psychiatrist with a certificate of clinical training from the Royal College of Psychiatrists, UK. She has over 15 years of experience working as a psychiatrist with children and has a special area of interest in neurodevelopmental disorders such as autism and ADHD. She believes very strongly that every child is unique and should be treated as such whilst making treatment plans working on their individual levels and weaknesses. She has numerous publications in research journals. She's finished her MBBS, MD, DPM, CCT in child and adolescent mental health and is a member of Royal College of Psychiatrists UK. Welcome, ma'am. We are so pleased to have you on board.
Thank you, Janisha, for having me, and thank you, Rotrack, for having me. It's a real pleasure being here and doing what I enjoy doing most, interacting with younger people. I just have, I wanted to talk about a topic which is really close to my heart, and that is suicide and younger people. Because, it just is whenever we lose a life to suicide in a young person, it hurts that much more because there is, you just feel that there is so much more that they could have given to the society, and you get a sense of helplessness about, it could have been saved, it could have been, that is something that was preventable if only the help was available at the right time. So I'm just going to give a brief kind of presentation about the signs to look out for, not just in yourself, but also if you have friends around, you have relatives around, if there is anyone that the red signs, the red flags to look out for. And as someone who's not trained to be a therapist as of now, what can you do as a lay person, as a, if you know of somebody who's going through a mental health crisis, or you're worrying about them doing something, what can you do till they are ready to accept help? So I'm just going to share my screen. Yeah, that's the one. Can you all see my screen?
Yes,
Hello.
ma'am.
Okay, great. Okay, quickly, why is this so important? It is, why is everyone so worried about our young people losing life? Because as probably some of us are shocked by the statistics, and we still keep getting shocked about it, that suicide is the second leading cause of death among the youth in the age range of 15 to 24. So and that is second only to road trafficular accidents. So after accidents, if we are losing young people to death, that is because of suicide. It is also like, the research has shown that it's not just a myth. I think there are a lot of people who are saying that because we are reporting much more, that is why there is more talk about suicide recently. But no, the research has shown that the suicide rate in younger people has doubled in the last 10 years. That is a huge increase in the number of people that are either thinking about ending their life, or feeling that their life is not worth living, or even attempting to kill themselves. One of the big misconceptions about discussions about suicide is, people worry about, parents worry about talking about openly about suicide, friends worry about talking to each other, because you feel that if that has not been discussed openly, are you putting ideas into someone's head? If you ask someone, are they feeling suicidal, and they've really not thought about it, is that something that you feel that maybe that is an idea that I have given them? But that is a misconception, clearly, because it is very difficult for a young person who's going through some sort of a crisis, who's worrying about or having suicidal thoughts, to openly come out with these thoughts and letting people know, because of the shock value, because people just react so negatively sometimes. There is so much of emotions attached to it. If you talk to your parents or you talk to your friends, suddenly it is either the feelings are completely invalidated, or it is, how can you even think about it? How can you even, like, what a stupid idea is that? But just to be very clear, that this is a misconception. Once you ask a young person openly about their suicidal thoughts, there is a sense of relief. There is a sense of, hey, I feel so much better that I can talk about it to someone. Also, that what happens is adolescents, younger age group, especially the ones that we are talking about, the 18 the 15 onwards age group, is such a complicated time in life. It's the most difficult time in life, to be honest. You are not just, finding yourself, you're also finding your own identity, you are finding your own gender role, you're finding your sexuality. All that is happening. You want to, you're figuring out literally what you want to do in life, and you are actually, therapeutically cutting the umbilical cord at that age, because you're separating from your parents. So a lot of what happens is there is a natural reaction of not being that integrated with your parents. When you're younger, smaller, parents know absolutely everything that is happening in your life. But suddenly, when once you enter your teenage years, parents become a little bit more distant, teenagers become more distant. So it is very difficult about whether this is actually something to be concerned, or this is just a phase of life. Is a teenager, you might hear many people saying, oh, that is just normal teenage behavior. They're just, being rude. They are just not coming out of their room. They're not interacting much. They keep, being in their own room. And you might hear a lot of people saying, oh, this is just attention seeking behavior. I'm sure she or he is not, didn't mean to say it or do it. She's just saying that she's suicidal because she wants some attention. Lots of people feel that this is hormones acting up. They're all over the place. What happens during young time is that your emotional brain is very well developed, but your cognitive side of the brain is not that developed. So people are generally impulsive in that time. So they don't think about the consequences of what their actions are going to cause. So what kind of, what are the pros and cons if they do something. But they're very emotional, so they know that they're not feeling too well, but they don't know what to do about it. So that is where this whole phase of complications comes across. What are the warning signs? As I was saying, if you know of somebody, or even sometimes when you feel, when you're living that life day in day out, you don't realize what is happening to you, or you don't realize sometimes what is happening to your friends. But if you see that there are changes in baseline behavior, changes in sleeping habits, it's not just like, sleeping too much, but it can be sleeping less, or spending all your time in bed, eating too much or eating too less. Sometimes it is, when you see a person after a few months, and you're in real shock, because hey, what happened to you? You've just put on so much weight, or you've lost so much weight. We all know about emotional eating, when as we all know that when we are feeling low, we go and have some chocolate, ice cream. We stuff ourselves literally, even when we are not hungry. Withdrawing from family and friends. So if people do not, suddenly are very, very isolated from their family, their friends. With family, as I said, in teenage years, in younger age group, that does happen. That's natural phase of development. But if you're not meeting, or not feeling like meeting with friends, suddenly in a group, you've noticed that this one particular person has not been coming for any of your outings or any of your meetings for such a long time. That is something to be concerned about why this person is suddenly isolated. Someone who's really outgoing, and suddenly has not gone to any of those outings. Someone having lots of somatic symptoms like headaches, stomach aches, other aches and pains, body ache, and which can't be explained. It doesn't have any reason. So if you have a reason about why you're having a headache, if you had a really long day on a virtual platform, you're bound to have a headache. But if there is no reason for you to have any of those symptoms, and you're still having them. Changes in mood. And it is not just sad mood, that is another, because in younger age group, what comes across is irritability. And that is why people suddenly become very, very, irritable. They start screaming, they start shouting, they literally start biting you if you go near them, and they're not very pleasant to be around. That's why people don't even bother asking them how they are, because you're like, what's the point, that person is really not pleasant to be around. But that might be a case of underlying depression, where they're feeling so bad about themselves, but what is coming across majorly is the irritability. Feeling hopeless, not making any plans about the future. Someone who's just not, just feels that actually there is no hope. This is what it's going to be like. This is my life, I'm never going to get better, or I'm never going to feel happy again. Or someone who was very enthusiastic about having a career path is suddenly being like, I don't know what I'm going to be doing, I'm just taking it as it comes. Antisocial behavior, lots of people who are depressed or going through some kind of a mental health crisis take to drugs and alcohol. As the young people I see always say, most of them who have underlying mental health issues will say, I just wanted to numb the pain, I just didn't want to feel anything because that feeling was so bad. Taking some kind of reckless behavior, indulging in reckless behavior, or not attending school or college or university, whatever it may be. If you see a sudden deterioration in academic performance, a really well, someone who's scoring A stars, who's been the top of the class, is suddenly started getting, two less marks, and there is no reason. She's like, he or she is like, I don't know what is happening, but I'm not even interested in the grades anymore. There is decreased interaction with teachers and, other students or friends. There is a complete lack in interest. They're not even bothered about the fact that they're not scoring too well, or they've stopped attending classes. Loss of interest in normal daily activities, so something that they really used to enjoy. So lots of us enjoy music, we enjoy dancing. All of us have different hobbies, and suddenly sports is something that young people are really interested in, and suddenly it is like, hey, I just don't feel like doing it. I'm not following the IPL anymore, I don't know, I'm just not interested in anything. And there is change in self-care. So not dressing up, not feeling like looking after yourself, not being bothered about your appearance at all, just lying in bed all day long. There are lots of people who then start getting preoccupation with death, frequent questions about death, dying, looking up, finding out, googling ways of the easiest way, the painless way of ending your life, the short way of ending your life. So lots of Google searches about that, a lot of researches about that. Sometimes they just randomly start mentioning about, hey, if I'm not here around, just make sure this happens. And or if I die tomorrow, if I'm not here around, just make sure that my cat is looked after. Or this favorite book, just take this favorite book of mine if I'm not around tomorrow. um, some children actually, or some young people actually, give away their favorite belongings, making a mini will of all their favorite things that they have. Their clothes, their lots of people just delegate their pets to someone to say, please make sure that this pet is okay. Writing or drawing about death or suicide, before, when we do art therapy, for example, a lot of young people who find it difficult to talk about their actual feelings make drawings about people hanging, or they make people with cut wrists. So we get a lot of where they're expressing their pain, their emotions in a way that they're not able to actually vocalize, but they are communicating in a way. What are the risk factors that we know of if someone has had a previous suicide attempt, even if it is minor, if they have, just sometimes people take a compass and try to slit their wrist with it, even if it is scratching, regardless of how serious that attempt is, any kind of previous suicide attempt is taken or should be taken very, very seriously. Someone who's experiencing a loss, and that could be a loss of a near person. So if they have had a death in the family, it could be loss of a occupation, it could be someone who's failed in their classes, it could be a breakup of a relationship, it could be your status. Suddenly you're the top performer of the class, and you've lost that status to someone new. So any kind of loss is something that is considered a risk factor. Someone who's been subjected to chronic bullying, someone who's had a family history of suicide or depression in their family. So if you know of a friend or someone whose family has a strong history, whose father or mother is depressed or has had suicide attempts in the past, any kind of violence or witnessing violence, so if they're subjected to any kind of trauma in the past, if they have access to means to suicide, which means that, for example, we say that doctors are very high risk because they have easy access to medicines or injectables, or policemen for that matter. So if it is easily accessible, so if their parents are one of those professions, then they might have more access to those means. If they have faced some kind of an acute rejection in their life, feelings of hopelessness I've already talked about. Sometimes they feel, they feel that they are a burden, and they actually vocalize that if I ask them what about their family, what happens to that if they try to attempt suicide, and they're like, my family is actually going to be better off. They have to look after me at the moment. I'm such a burden to them. They might be sad for a little bit, but after that I'm sure they'll recover and they're better off without me. So that feeling of burden, they when they feel like they are a burden. And any signs of suicidal ideation, if they've ever vocalized, however, lots of people just mention it and then say, oh, I was just joking, I was really not serious about it. But if just it is important that every aspect of that is taken quite seriously. So what can you do as a person if you're having any of those symptoms and any kind of severity? It could be very severe, it could be just mild, it could just be this basic boredom about, I really, some kind of thoughts about your life not being worth living. Is there are some self-care things that you all can do even as a preventative measure, so that we look after our own mental health appropriately, so that we don't even reach that stage? Is to eat appropriately, take proper breaks for eating. When we are very very busy, what we do is just rush about, just grab a sandwich somewhere, and or when you're revising, when you're studying, just grab it along. But sometimes just taking that break, a 10-minute break of actually sitting on the table and having your lunch, your dinner with your family, makes a lot of difference. Sleeping at regular hours. If you're studying, I think there is still an excuse, but a lot of us, including myself, I think have gotten into the habit of browsing and Netflix or some kind of a show at night. And once you start a series, you cannot stop. So just be mindful that sleep is very very important. So having regular sleep hours, exercising regularly, even if it's 10 minutes a day of any kind of exercise. It could be during this COVID situation, none of us are going out, but I tell my young people, just on the balcony, if you sit and do yoga for 5-10 minutes, or any kind of exercising. A lot of my young people are into kickboxing and karate and things like that. It could be anything, but just 10 minutes of physical activity during the day is extremely important, and doing it regularly. Having a routine. Now, what has happened with this COVID situation is that a lot of us don't have a fixed timing. We are not working at that particular hours. We no longer have, we are all working from home, studying from home. So that routine has gone for a toss. I don't have to get up at 8 o'clock to get ready to be in office at 9 o'clock. So, I can just about relax and get up aram say easily. But just knowing that this is what I'm going to be doing during the day, having some kind of a structure just makes it meaningful. Because if there is nothing to do, I'm naturally going to be lazing about in bed. Avoid any kind of excessive caffeine, avoid alcohol, avoid illicit substances, because all of these give you a high for a temporary measure, but they are all antidepressants. So in the long run, they are going to play on your mental health. Compete with yourself and not others. So do not in any way try to race with somebody else. Just try to keep improving within yourself. Be kind to yourself. You don't have to always be harsh on yourself. We all are important people in our own rights. We all have a purpose in life. Just make sure that that you are important, you're wanted, you're liked, you're loved. Laughter. See, comedy shows at the moment, I strictly tell my clients at the moment, do not go for reality cinema. We already have a lot of negative news, negative everywhere. There is so much of negativity. Why would you want to depress yourself further by seeing something that is not does not give you a feel good feeling? So at the moment, see comedy shows, see rom-com, see something that really makes your day better. I've already spoken about practice any kind of, meditation, yoga, or mindfulness to keep yourself. And it is just, lots of people tell me they don't have the time, but it is, just 5 minutes of the time for yourself. Avoid excessive negative news coverage. Responsible use of social media. Do not in any way indulge excessively in social media. Be nice to people on social media. You see lots of people being so rude because they actually they won't say it on your face, but it is very easy to just type a message, but you don't know what that's going to cause to the other side. You never know what is going through somebody else's mind, and the more rude you are, it might just tip the other person over. Make sure you're communicating either with your friends, your family, but just make sure that you're communicating. If you're feeling low, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling confused, that's completely fine, but make sure that you're letting someone know that that is what you are feeling. Staying connected, even if it's virtually. I know most of us are not seeing each other face to face, and we are all missing it. But having family get-togethers virtually or meeting friends virtually, so that you still feel connected, is a huge yeah, yes, yes. Gratitude journal, practicing gratitude, because when we focus a lot of negativity about, I don't have this, I don't have that, I can't go to school, I can't meet my friends, I've had a pay cut, you're constantly looking at that. Just concentrate on the things that you have to be thankful for. Simple things, about writing down 5 things in your life that you have to be thankful for, including I have my parents who really care for me. I don't have to worry about where my meals are coming from at this time in the when everybody more, when we see such horror stories about people struggling to even have food. So simple things like that, but just concentrate on the positive, and that makes a huge impact, because it just gives us a sense of, hey, I am lucky to have what I have. Acknowledge your feelings, big one. It's okay to feel confused, overwhelmed, uncertain, sad, angry, whatever it is. It's okay to feel it. It's just that do not keep it under yourself, keeping it within yourself, because what happens is we all have finite uh, jars of what I call jars of feeling. If you keep putting it, at some point the glass jar is going to break, and that is what happens. It's almost like a volcano coming out, and then you tend to do some really unhealthy things. Rather than that, every once in a while, it's very important to offload your feelings, and it can be with any way. Either you talk it out to someone, some of your close friends, family, or you can you can journal it. You can use creative arts, you can draw, you can paint, you can do anything that you feel comfortable with. Write, have a mood diary, but just write things down, say it aloud, but let go of your feelings. Extremely important. Develop a hobby. It could be either an old one that you're revisiting, or develop a new one. A lot of people are taking up baking, a lot of people are taking up painting, and it was like, oh, I had forgotten what it was like. But make sure that you spend some me time, because it gives you a natural relaxation. Contribute to a social cause. It could be anything. As young people, I think we have the opportunity of doing something meaningful in society at the moment. It could be as simple as helping other people who are not, like those who have medical problems, those who are old and can't get out of the house, getting groceries for them. But just take up something as a social cause, because that gives meaning to your life as well, and gives you a sense of purpose. What can you do to help others? If you have somebody who's going through a crisis, if you know of somebody who might be struggling with their mental health, just sometimes having listening to them non-judgmentally. You don't have to offer any advice, but just telling them, hey, if you want to talk, I'm here to listen. Calling them up and saying, how are you, keeping a tab on them, and making sure that you do not say things like, not invalidating their feelings. Asking them about their suicidal plans. If you're ever worried about somebody who might have might have some suicidal thoughts, asking them, you're not you're are you having any of these thoughts? And the way you portray it is also very important, because if you ask somebody, you're not thinking of doing something stupid, are you? They're not going to open up. Just keeping it open ended. Let them know that you're there, that you care, and you're available. encourage them to talk to their family, and signpost them to a professional if if you really feel that, because that is what is going to help them in the long run. You are a big part about the support system, but their change is going to be like when they actually offload their feelings to a professional. I think that was my bit. I'm very happy. I think I might have a couple of minutes for questions.
I'll just read out the questions from the chat box.
Sure.
We have a question from Nihal. He says, how to figure out if someone is suicidal? Is there any kind of questionnaire that can be administered to assess if someone has suicidal tendencies?
See, what I wouldn't advocate is any of you all taking up a professional role. So giving out a questionnaire would be something that a professional might be doing, because just simply asking them a simple question about hey, have you ever thought about, are you feeling hopeless, are you feeling that your life is not worth living, have you ever thought about committing suicide, are you thinking about self harm? Keep it open ended, keep it as generic as possible. Don't try to go into like the nitty gritty of things, because leave that to the professionals, I would say.
If anyone has any other questions that you'd like to keep anonymous as well, you can just personally message on the Zoom chat and I can read them out. Okay, I guess there aren't any questions. It was very informative in itself. I think everyone's questions are answered through the talk. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being here. Your talk really enlightened us on the different ways in which you can just recognize if someone is going through any mental illness, even if it's just a suicidal thought. I can vouch for everyone here that we've understood that the problem, where the problem lies and what's the way to go around it and the preventive steps that we need to take to help someone in need. The session also explained to us how serious a situation can be, even if it's just one statement as simple as, I'm not feeling it today. So we really understand the depth of the situation and can act accordingly. I hope everyone else had a great session as well. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being a part of today's session.
Thank you. If anyone wants to get in touch, or as you have mentioned, Janisha, if they have any private questions, I think y'all have my email. You can always send me an email, and I'm happy to answer any questions if people want to get in touch privately. So do feel free. Okay. Otherwise,
yes, ma'am.
bye-bye.
We will send your email across on the WhatsApp groups as well, so that
Sure.
they have access.
Absolutely.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.